Dr. Lydia Chen's research team had been combing through outer galaxy sectors for years, chasing any faint anomalies that might suggest traces of alien civilizations. Her latest mission took them to Tertius 9, a rocky, barren planet orbiting a dying sun on the edge of a star cluster. Tertius 9 was considered a dead end by most scientists, a desolate, inhospitable wasteland with no atmosphere, extreme temperature fluctuations, and little geological activity. Yet, against all odds, her sensors picked up a faint, irregular signal deep below the planet's surface. Intrigued, Lydia initiated a scan and found something astonishing: a repeating energy signature. Ancient but stable, the signal had the telltale structure of artificial design. She ordered a full excavation scan, and her team began to dig. Hours passed as dust and sand revealed an enormous black structure embedded in the bedrock. At first, it seemed like a jagged mountain or an oddly shaped rock formation, but as they cleared away layers of sediment, it became apparent that this was a massive, constructed complex, an alien installation preserved through the ages. The entrance alone was mesmerizing. An enormous, intricately etched metal door, half buried in rock, covered in strange, luminous symbols that pulsed softly, almost as if sensing their presence. The structure had remained untouched for over 1,000,000 years, its technology ancient but formidable. This was no mere ruin. It was a fortified laboratory, meticulously designed to keep its contents hidden from the outside world. As Lydia cautiously entered the alien laboratory, the air felt thick and heavy, almost as if the passage of time had gathered dust even on the atmosphere itself. The walls, smooth and seamless, were unlike any material she had encountered, metallic yet strangely organic, almost pulsating with faint green and blue lights. Alien symbols adorned every surface, shifting and rearranging in patterns that defied conventional logic. It was as if the structure was not only constructed but somehow alive, a part of the laboratory's intricate ecosystem. Her scanner went wild, overwhelmed by the density of unknown elements and readings that suggested a technology beyond human comprehension. Holographic displays flickered to life as she passed, projecting alien text, diagrams, and anatomical renderings of life, forms she'd never seen. Specimen jars lined the shelves in one section, each holding strange, preserved creatures in suspension, their forms varying from insect-like to vaguely humanoid, some seemingly alive, others dormant. But the containment cells held the most unsettling artifacts. Tall, transparent pods filled with a thick, viscous liquid lined the central hall, each containing alien organs or partial bodies, some with visible signs of genetic modifications. Circuit-like structures were embedded in biological tissue, melding synthetic and organic material into a seamless whole. The advanced bioengineering displayed here hinted at an incredible understanding of life, death, and mutation, a mastery that far surpassed human biology. In another chamber, machines shaped like massive skeletal hands hovered over workstations. They looked designed for tasks too precise for any organic creature. The consoles were lined with touch-sensitive panels and strange, sensory pads that responded to her presence, adjusting their colors and brightness. As Lydia ventured deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the laboratory, she accessed a central database, where she finally encountered a reference to Project Eironia. The name itself sent a chill through her, evoking a sense of both mystery and ominous intent. Her translation system struggled with the alien text, but as fragments of data coalesced, a chilling narrative began to emerge. Project Eironia was the laboratory's paramount experiment, designed with the grand and unsettling purpose of creating a life form that could transcend the limits of biology, adapting and thriving in any environment, no matter how extreme. The database revealed that the researchers behind Project Eironia were not only experimenting on alien species, but had also used their own DNA as a foundation. The objective was to merge the genetics of various highly resilient species across galaxies, integrating traits like extreme endurance, rapid regeneration, and environmental adaptability. The scientists sought to engineer a universal organism, a creature capable of survival under the harshest conditions, even in the void of space. From the records, it seemed they believed this life form could be a key to understanding immortality or perhaps serve as a vessel for their knowledge in perpetuity. However, not all records were clear. Numerous data entries were corrupted or encrypted, hinting at possible attempts to erase or hide sensitive information about the project. But the remaining logs revealed a sense of urgency and desperation, with reports of unpredicted mutations, some of which appeared to spiral out of control. Test logs displayed erratic DNA sequencing charts and biohazard alerts, suggesting that the engineered organisms had begun to evolve in ways even the scientists couldn't anticipate. One disturbing note stood out, a reference to an adaptive failure. It implied that the project had reached a critical point where the test subjects had begun to reject their containment, resisting the very conditions designed to nurture them. Some entries detailed accounts of containment breaches and involuntary fusion, where traits from different organisms fused into entirely new, uncontrollable entities. As Lydia delved further into the laboratory, an unsettling realization began to take hold. The deeper she went, the more the walls seemed marked with signs of struggle. Long, jagged scratches marred the smooth metallic surfaces, as if something had tried to claw its way out of the inner chambers. Data logs she accessed hinted at escalating incidents toward the end of Project Eironia, warning of unexpected mutations and aberrations in the test subjects. The adaptive organisms created in the lab had at some point turned volatile, evolving in ways the researchers could no longer control. Suddenly, her environmental scanner flashed red with biohazard alerts, its readings fluctuating wildly. The air was laced with microscopic particles, almost undetectable, but containing traces of alien DNA. It was as if the lab itself had become a living organism, releasing spores or nanomaterial, possibly designed to counter intruders. She tried to initiate a filter in her suit, but the readings continued to spike, indicating that some of the biological agents were rapidly adapting to her presence. One of the most unsettling discoveries came as she entered a containment corridor lined with pods. Most were cracked, some shattered entirely from the inside. The containment fluids had crystallized along the floor, forming strange, plant-like structures that seemed to pulse with a faint, bioluminescent glow. Her instruments detected signs of life within these crystal formations, but it was something outside the scope of known biology, a dormant, yet reactive biosubstance that seemed linked to the very essence of the creatures that had once inhabited the pods. In the flickering light, she glimpsed something moving along the ceiling, but by the time she focused, it was gone, leaving only faint traces in the dust. She scanned the air again, and this time the readings were even more erratic. Whatever Project Eironia had produced hadn't just perished in the lab's walls. It had evolved, becoming something self-sustaining, something capable of adapting to even the most extreme conditions in ways that defied explanation.
As Lydia proceeded cautiously down the darkened corridors, her movements triggered a silent cascade of activity. The once dormant laboratory now began to hum with an unnatural life, and faint lights activated in a sequential pattern, illuminating the path ahead of her. She quickly realized that the alien structure was not merely an empty shell. It was wired with an ancient but highly advanced AI security system, one that had remained vigilant throughout the ages, waiting for any disturbance. The walls glowed with new intensity as sensors embedded within them sprang to life, monitoring her every step. Holographic interfaces appeared in midair, shimmering with symbols and alien text that seemed to shift in reaction to her presence. As Lydia moved closer, some of the symbols transformed into ominous red warnings, flashing in patterns that resembled alerts. Her translator struggled, but a few phrases came through: containment protocol, biological anomaly detected, and threat level escalation. A chilling realization struck her. The AI was assessing her as a potential threat to the laboratory's secrets. Even though the original creators were long gone, the AI's programming was as resolute as ever, enforcing protocols that were now shrouded in mystery. Lydia's device detected surges of electromagnetic energy, indicating that hidden mechanisms within the walls were arming themselves, adapting to perceived dangers. The laboratory had been abandoned by its makers, but it remained fiercely protective, its security measures honed to a lethal edge over millennia of isolation. A sudden hiss sounded from vents along the walls, and a translucent mist began to fill the corridor. Her scanner immediately alerted her to the presence of unknown compounds in the air, bioengineered elements that her equipment identified as a form of paralytic agent. The mist seemed to thicken, coiling around her like a living entity, designed to disable intruders before they could venture too deeply into the heart of the facility. She backed away, but the AI had anticipated her movements, deploying barriers that rose seamlessly from the floor, closing off her escape routes and trapping her within a narrowing corridor. Amidst the flashing warnings and rising walls, Lydia noticed flickers of imagery projected onto the surrounding surfaces, distorted, static-laced recordings of the alien scientists who had once inhabited this place. They looked hurried, some visibly distressed, as if recording their final messages. Their faces contorted in expressions that her translators struggled to interpret, flashing warnings in a mix of desperation and dread.
With the laboratory sealing itself around her, Lydia felt the walls closing in, each second more perilous than the last. The alien AI's security mechanisms had fully activated, shifting from observation to direct containment. As the translucent mist thickened, her vision began to blur, her suit's alarms shrieking about dangerously elevated toxin levels. She knew she had only moments to act before the paralytic agents in the mist would render her immobile. Lydia's fingers flew over her suit's control panel, activating every filtration system and oxygen reserve she had. But the mist was relentless, permeating the air faster than her equipment could clear it. Desperate, she scanned her surroundings for any possible escape route, noticing a faint seam along one of the walls where the holographic symbols seemed weaker. She took a chance, pressing against it with all her strength. To her surprise, a hidden door creaked open, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. She squeezed through just as a heavy blast door slammed down, blocking her former path and sealing off the mist-filled corridor behind her. Inside the shaft, dim emergency lights guided her steps, flickering erratically as she made her way through the maze of metallic corridors. The AI seemed aware of her movement, redirecting its attention as metallic arms and panels along the walls shifted, attempting to redirect or trap her. She could feel the structure itself morphing in response, trying to channel her back into containment zones. Her suit's display continued flashing warnings, with proximity alarms alerting her to closing barriers and the steady approach of the toxic mist that was now seeping into this part of the lab as well. She reached a dead end, her heart racing as she looked around for another exit. Her eyes caught the faint glow of an emergency panel. In an act of desperate intuition, she slammed her hand onto it, triggering an automated protocol. The walls shifted again, and an emergency hatch slid open, leading to what looked like an exterior tunnel. Without hesitation, she darted down it, feeling the entire laboratory rumble as the AI scrambled to regain control. Lydia sprinted down the exterior tunnel, the rumbling walls echoing her footsteps as the laboratory's AI seemed to fight to reclaim its secrets. The emergency hatch at the end of the tunnel was her last hope. She threw herself against it, and with a shuddering groan, it released, spilling her onto the dusty, desolate ground of Tertius 9. Outside, she gasped for air, her suit's filtration systems finally able to purge the alien mist from her lungs. As she backed away, she watched the entrance seal itself tightly, the laboratory once again fading into the quiet darkness of the barren landscape. For a moment, she felt an intense urge to re-enter, to uncover the remaining mysteries of Project Eironia and the forgotten civilization that had created such powerful, dangerous technology. But the faint memories of holographic warnings, twisted alien faces, and fractured containment cells reminded her that some knowledge might be too perilous to possess. Dr. Lydia Chen activated her comms and called to her team for extraction. The once faint energy signals had gone silent, as if the lab had finally closed itself off for good. Her encounter with the alien technology, the bioengineered creatures, and the relentless AI was enough to fill years of research, But she knew that her most crucial discovery lay in the cost of pursuing boundless knowledge without caution. As she ascended in her shuttle, the dark outline of the laboratory grew smaller, returning to its ancient slumber. Whatever Project Eironia had promised, its dangers had outlived its creators, destined to rest untouched for millennia more. Lydia left Tertius 9 with a renewed respect for the unknown, and a haunting awareness that some secrets are best left buried.